So please be pointed and direct in your questions. We'll get to as many public comment questions as we'll have. It depends on the number of committee comments. We'll maintain the integrity and decorum of the committee. There'll be no choosing sides and no clapping. We'll give everybody an equal opportunity, and we'll respect each speaker as they speak. Senator Rabin, you're welcome to House Health. You're recognized.
Thank you, Representative Potts, and thank you, members of the committee, for allowing me to present Senate Bill 3 today. I have some personal comments, but I will hold those unless we have some time later and if someone cares to ask me about those. I will go through the bill and explain it, and then hopefully we can entertain and answer any questions that the members of the committee may have. Thank you. Every time I present this bill, I read from the text of the actual legislation because I think it's important for people to understand what this bill does and what this bill does not do. The article is intended to make only those changes to existing North Carolina law that are necessary to protect patients and their physicians or doctors from criminal penalties. It is not intended to change current civil criminal laws governing the use of cannabis for non-medical purposes. That's the gist of the bill. That one paragraph is the entire bill. The rest of the bill simply is enabling this to happen. The purpose of the bill is to allow tightly regulated use of medical cannabis only for those with debilitating illnesses. The bill limits the use of medical cannabis to people certified by their doctor to having debilitating conditions such as cancer, ALS, epilepsy, Crohn's disease, Parkinson's disease, PTSD, or a terminal illness. The terminal illness part is very critical. The recreational sale of marijuana remains illegal under this legislation. The bill sets up a licensing and regulatory authority under DHHS to limit the production and sale of medical cannabis to no more than 10 suppliers in the entire state. Those suppliers must meet strict requirements of how to locate and operate their facilities, how to grow their cannabis, how to package and sell their inventory, and they must track every product from seed to sale. Products must be independently tested for safety, and suppliers are banned from most forms of advertising, including advertising that might appeal to minors. On the patient side, after obtaining certification from their doctor, a patient must also apply to DHHS for a registration card and may only possess a 30-day supply of cannabis products as determined by their physician. We have accepted significant input from law enforcement on the bill, and law enforcement will have access to numerous records and databases necessary to verify that patients are eligible and that suppliers are in compliance with provisions of the bill. Both production facilities and cannabis centers are also subject to random searches by law enforcement and DHHS. The system is designed to be self-funded and should not require recurring appropriations. Senator Lee and Senator Lowe are here to answer technical questions, but that, Mr. Chairman, is the heart of the bill in a nutshell.
Thank you, Senator Rabin. Questions from the chair? Questions from the committee? Representative Cunningham, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Senator Rabin. Two items, the application fee, the licensing fee, and you said a registration. Can we have those identified if those exist and what they would be?
Senator Rabin, you're recognized.
Senator Lee. They are spelled out in the bill, but yes, ma'am, we will.
On page 13 of the bill, I think first-year suppliers have a non-refundable license fee of $50,000. There's also an application fee. There's also a renewal fee on an annual basis of $10,000, $5,000 for a new production facility, $1,000 for each existing facility or medical cannabis center they operate. All this can be found on page 13.
Follow-up, Mr. Chair. The application fee, thank you.
Sorry, we're not going to do follow-ups. Representative Reeder.
Question for you. In the debilitating conditions that are listed on page 2, there's a number of them that are listed there. And I'm wondering about the definition of debilitating condition. In particular, one of them, just positive status for HIV. That disease, if you take your medicine, has a life expectancy similar to the rest of the population. So I'm just wondering if you'd be open to re-looking at those conditions. To one, not all of them are debilitating, and the data on the use of marijuana for some of these conditions is not very extensive, and I was just wondering if you'd be open to looking at those debilitating conditions.
Representative Rabin, you're recognized.
Thank you. Representative Reeder, Dr. Reeder, yes, we are open to any suggestions from you or the medical, from the medical society, and we have had input actually from the medical society on this, on that particular issue. Yes, we would be very willing to. And in the bill, the commission, the board, if you will, however you want to respond to this, has some leeway as to what they can consider, not consider going forward, and there will be physicians on that commission as well for that input. Yes, we would be. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Loftus, you're recognized, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Senator Rabin and other two senators for presenting this. My question is kind of multifaceted about the prescription. When that prescription is written, how does it cover a possible DUI incident, a workplace accident, an initial job interview, drug testing? How is that covered? And a prescription, is it 2 puffs in the morning, a joint in the afternoon? Just, is that, I didn't read that necessarily, or is that deemed under the doctor's purview? Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Rabin.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll take a shot at that. This would be no different than if that person were taking Oxycontin or any other drug possibly that was prescribed by a physician for whatever reason they may be taking it. And the label itself will have on it what is necessary, just as any other controlled substance or tightly regulated substance would have.
Thank you, Representative Belk. It's good to see you as always.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's good to be seen. Thank you, Senator Rabin. I have a question about with the licensing and with who can apply for these licenses. And we're talking about vertically. So what I'm trying to understand is if you apply for this license, you are going to be the manufacturer of this, you're going to plant this, you're going to distribute it, and you're going to do the whole thing. There's no, that's all inclusive. There's no way that you can apply for a license that says, I'm just going to be a grower and I'm going to sell this to somebody else. Is that correct?
That's correct at this time. There will be 10 licenses issued, and this will be a seed to sale operation. This is not a farming operation like growing tobacco or corn or soybeans. It's a very tightly regulated, controlled environment, basically greenhouse environment, and they're pretty doggone high tech and expensive to get into, but it's very high tech.
Thank you. Any other committee? Representative Pirtle.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator Rabin, your list of debilitating medical conditions, exhausted as it may be, is about 15, I think, listed on there. And you and I have had a side conversation. How was this list of 15 determined? And I mean, I know probably some of my other colleagues here have had constituents come through their offices with one or more of these listed conditions, but how did we limit ourselves to these 15 conditions?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. These were, as most of them are severely debilitating or terminal conditions, you know, like ALS or like cancer, which I had and many other people have. And then others came to us from studying what other states had done, Utah, Mississippi, Florida, and what have you. We used those, and then we had a tremendous amount of input because PTSD was not originally on our list, and we had a tremendous amount of input from the veterans in the state, probably more than any other one thing. And that's how we came up with them. It was not just arbitrary. It was things that have at least anecdotally shown that cannabis may have some improvement in quality of life for individuals with those specific disorders or diseases.
Thank you. Representative Sabania.
Question for the bill sponsors.
Yes, ma'am, you're recognized.
I'm going to springboard from my colleagues' questions in terms of the involvement of our medical doctors. There's been a theme that we should really trust our doctors in making decisions when it comes to their patients. So I did not see in the bill an effort towards having our medical doctors or allied professionals be more robustly educated in how they can prescribe, and then leading off to the fact that from that, not limiting it to a list that was researched by people who are not healthcare professionals, but actually having medical doctors and healthcare professionals prescribe as any other drug would be in specific to the individual needs of their patients. Can you respond to those two things?
You're recognized, Senator Raven.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll let Senator Lee come in and follow up on that one. I think what you're getting at, the bill requires that any physician wishing to prescribe medical cannabis must take a 10-hour course in that, or continuing ed, and then every year they have to have 3 hours of continuing education just in cannabis. Does that answer your question? And I don't know whether physicians are required to take a course in controlled substances or not. Veterinarians are annually, but ours is 2 hours. But this is a 3-hour annual for the physicians that do prescribe. Not all physicians are going to do it. I'm sure that oncologists are, and some of the folks along that like that. But I don't think just every general practitioner is going to want to go through the efforts or have a patient base that's going to have the need for this product. If that doesn't answer, I would ask Senator Lee to get in.
Representative Chairman White has it.
Representative, thank you for your question. I think if you will read under physician requirements that it doesn't actually say that the physician will be issuing a prescription. It says that the physician will be writing a certification that this person has this condition. But because it's not an FDA-approved drug, it's not a prescription.
Thank you, Chairman White. Representative Dixon, you're recognized, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Senator Rabin. I noticed on the one hand, for the applicant is required to have residency in North Carolina, and then just following that, they're allowed to partner with out-of-state folks. Do we have any concern, or would we be concerned at all about the enormous amount of out-of-state money by states far advanced than we are on these kinds of issues, with requiring residency to begin with and then allowing partnerships for out-of-state money to dominate?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think the point is one of the requirements for an application you can find on page 12, documenting, demonstrating the applicant possesses all kinds of experience with regard to controlled environment agriculture, and specifically with respect to cannabis. And so while we wanted to make sure that we had folks who are from North Carolina be involved in the process, we also acknowledged that the expertise may not always lie here, nor the resources to start a venture such as this.
Thank you. Any other questions before I go to public comment? Chairman Lambeth.
It's probably not as much a question as it is an observation. We've obviously been lobbied by lots of texts, emails, people who believe that this is, quite frankly, just a step to recreational marijuana. I think everybody knows my background in healthcare. Saw a lot of people over my term who suffered from cancer, other very difficult illnesses and diseases and lots of pains. I've actually had a number of those former patients reach out to me and ask me how was I going to vote on this issue. And I said, well, I'm learning. I'm doing my fact finding. And the ones who've gone through, as you have, Senator Rabin, very difficult illness or disease, who found this a way to relieve pain, have said to me, and these are ministers, these are family people, please help us, because we've been in such pain, we think that this will actually relieve us. So, because I've been in a fact-finding mode, I went with a group of legislators to Mississippi. There were probably, 15 of us. And we went and visited what Mississippi had done, setting this up in a very controlled environment. And that environment was in a large warehouse. As you mentioned, it was a series of greenhouses. There was strong regulation. There was strong security. We were given a very comprehensive review, and then we sat down with the Speaker of their House in Mississippi, and it made an impact on me because I was still on the fence, still trying to decide, and I've listened to a lot of people, and it seems like the biggest issue of those who are speaking against it simply relates to this is a step towards recreational marijuana, and I think we need to be able to answer that question. But if you actually go see how well this is actually regulated and controlled and the environment it was grown in, it gives you a different perspective. And I think that helped me understand better what you're talking about. In an environment where these plants are treated and grown in a very controlled environment, and the regulators make sure that even the dust that was on the floor had to be accounted for. There was no question about accountability and the regulation in this particular plant we were in. So, I applaud you for trying to help people that's in pain. Those people have asked me to support this bill because they believe they need some help. And as I said, these are former friends of mine that I worked with who have gone through a very difficult treatment for cancer or some other disease. So I appreciate you at least bringing this to us, and I think we all need to continue to learn more about it as we decide what we're going to do with this bill.
Thank you, Chairman Lemon. Representative Wansey, I will remind you, if you would, keep your comments to 2 minutes or less.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Question for the bill sponsor.
Yes, sir, you're recognized.
So I just had a clarifying question. There are 2 boards that are described in the proposed acts that have a role in helping to administer the changes. Just wanted to clarify, but are there term limits on the members of the Compassionate Use Advisory Board and on the members of the Medical Cannabis Production Commission?
Senator Rabin, Senator Lee.
Could we ask staff if they
You
would?
certainly can. You can inquire the staff.
Jessica Boney, Legislative Analysis. Yes, sir. So let me just find it in, okay, so if you turn to page 10, starting on line 3, these are the terms for the members of the Medical Cannabis Production Commission, and they shall serve terms of 4 years, beginning effective July 1 of the year of appointment. And then let me just look up for the Medical Commission. Okay, for the Compassionate Use Advisory Board, if you turn to page 5, line 3, they shall also serve 4-year terms. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Boney. Representative Chesser.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Senator Rabin, for your support and your willingness to work with others. He welcomed me into his office to discuss this bill as a freshman, and I appreciate it. My personal account with this and passion for it is well known in this committee, and I appreciate the members trusting me to lead on other bills in this vein. I support this bill as well. You guys know, particularly in the veteran community, we have now lost more veterans to suicide than we lost in the last 2 wars we fought. So this is a personal issue for me, and I was wondering, Senator Rabin, if you might share your personal testimony with this committee.
Thank you.
You may do that if you can do it in the allotted time. I'm sure you're skillful enough to do that.
Thank you. Thank you. If I get carried away, Mr. Chairman, just give me the high sign if you would. Thank you very much. You know, as some of you may or may not know, I'm a cancer survivor. I was diagnosed with stage 3 colon cancer at 48 years of age. Post-op, when I met my oncologist, the first words out of his mouth was, "I want to tell you that my name is," and patted me on the knee and said, "It's okay to die." That was the bedside manner. But he's a good man, and I love him to this day, and he saved my life. 3 months into my chemotherapy, he had told me back up once, he said, the way things looked to me at my first oncology visit was, you have 18 months to live, I'll make most of them good. And we started treatment. 3 months into the treatment, I get a little involved, and I can taste the chemotherapy as I stand here and talk. 3 months into therapy, I said, "Billy, am I part of some double-blind study?" And he said, "What do you mean?" I said, "Well, I don't feel a bit different than I did the first day I walked in here. And I've used up 3 of my 18. And he said, "Do you want me to make you sick?" I said, "You got 12 months to cure me or kill me. That's the way I want to go through this treatment." He said, "I'm going to make you sick. I'm going to make you real sick. And I don't know if you can take it, but I'm going to try." I said, "I'll take it. If you can put it in me, I can get it out." He said, "You need to get some good marijuana." He said, "We have pills. I've given you a prescription for Marinol. You may as well stick them in your ear. They're not going to work." And I said, "I don't use drugs. I have a license to buy and sell controlled substances. This can be a problem." He said, "If you want to live, you better do this. Can you get your hands on some?" I said, "I don't think that's a problem. I own a fleet of fishing boats, and my problem is keeping drugs off those boats." So I went home. I talked to my chief of police. I talked to my sheriff. I told them what was going on. I said, "I'm going to have to buy drugs illegally to stay alive, and I want you to know it." And I never bought the first drug. It appeared in my mailbox on an as-needed basis. And every day, every single day, I would go to work in the morning, 7 o'clock. I had a lazy boy in my office. I would sit in my office, and that lazy boy, and my assistant would come back and say, "Dr. Rabin, you have a patient." I would get up, I'd go see my patient. I'd come back and I'd sit in that lazy boy. I never missed a single day's work. Not one. I knew if I stopped, I would die. And I knew that I loved my mother too much to die while she was alive. Scout's honor. So, around 2 o'clock, between 1:45 and 2:10 every day, I would get so nauseated that I couldn't take it anymore. I would walk outside, I'd put my hands on the back of my building, and I would heave until I got enough strength to get in my truck and drive home. I'd go home, I would light up joint, if whatever you call it. I never smoked in my life, so I wasn't very good at it. And I'd take about 3 puffs of marijuana. My symptoms would go away before you could bat your eye. I would stay there till the next morning. I'd get up at 7 o'clock. I'd go to work, and I would repeat it. And I did that until I completed my chemo.
Thank you, Senator.
And that's the only reason I'm alive today. And there's no science behind it, but I can tell you, I know I know. And there are tens of thousands of people in the state that could benefit just as I did.
Thank
That's
you,
the
sir.
story.
Thank you. We're going to have to move on. I appreciate that very much. Representative Shepherd.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to ask a question, but first I want to say I certainly sympathize and empathize with people that have some of these issues. I have great friends that have PTSD. My brother has Parkinson's. I have neuropathy. My mother had Crohn's disease, so I've been around a lot of these debilitating diseases and so forth. I've heard and read studies where there's a form of this same cannabis or marijuana that is coming out in liquid or pill form. My question, Senator Rabin, is there a possibility that that could be a compromise with you all, that it's not a smoking type form? Seems like some people are just all about smoking it. If we had another form that might be easier to control, would you be okay with that as well? Thank you.
Senator Rabin.
Well, I believe that this product will be supplied in many forms. From what there are vaping forms, there are some tar forms that are smoked and inhaled. There are gummies. I think there are a myriad of different ways that it will be that it will be used through the product, and then smoking would just be one of them, and probably would fall by the wayside pretty quickly as research got forward and what have you.
Thank you. I'm going to try to get to at least one or two people who signed up. David Evans, NCALM. If you could limit your comments, come to the mic.
How many minutes do I have?
You have 2.
Great, I'll be fast.
If you would go to the mic, we'd all like to hear you in the back. That way, if the sergeant at arms can flip the switch, if you go over, and you'll disappear into the floor.
Tell them that. That's what their job is. They're to tell them where they need to go. They're going to speak.
Please try to stay within your time frame so we can get others to speak.
Yeah, I'm with North Carolinians against legalizing marijuana. I've been involved in a number of these fights nationally on the state level. Every sponsor of every medical marijuana bill says the same thing. This is a really tough bill, and it will not lead to legalization, and it will not lead to abuses. I'm going to ask you to exercise some humility. You are not the FDA. You are not qualified to be making this decision based on anecdotal stories, because every decision that you make is going to affect thousands of people with serious illnesses. Have the sponsors of this bill told you that there are many negative aspects to using marijuana and prescription medications? We've provided you with that information. All of these conditions have very weak evidence that marijuana may be helpful. There's also the placebo effect. I smoked pot in college, and I guarantee you I felt better. That doesn't mean that I was getting better. As far as going to legalization of marijuana, this bill is structured towards that end. That Cannabis Use Board will be appointed by Governor Cooper, who is very much in favor of legalizing marijuana. They will have a 4-year term, and they will be able to add conditions or add treatments to this without your consent. That's what you're going to be agreeing to. And it does ultimately lead to legalization. That's what the experience has been in other states. We have a ton of medical information about all these conditions. I'll be happy to give them to anybody who asks. Thank you.
Thank you. Elizabeth Page. If you would state your name for the record. And
Good morning. My name is Elizabeth Page, and I am a resident of Wake County. Thank you for the opportunity to share my support for the Compassionate Care Act, which is meaningful for North Carolinians living with multiple sclerosis. MS is a disease of the central nervous system characterized by inflammation and lesions on the brain sheaths in the nerve sheaths in the brain and spinal cord. This damage impairs nerve function and can lead to degeneration and permanent changes. Symptoms vary by individual and can include numbness or tingling, difficulty walking, fatigue, dizziness, pain, depression, blindness, paralysis, and as well as cognitive dysfunction. 28 years ago, I was diagnosed with relapsing remitting MS, so I know the challenges of living with this disease. I have responded well to my disease-modifying medications, but MS is very unpredictable. I may face future battles with spasticity, pain, and bladder function. I've trusted the National MS Society for years. The Society encourages states to standardize distribution methods, support advancing research, and facilitate access to non-smokable forms of medical cannabis for individuals living with MS. They do not support legalization for recreational use. I want to tell you about my friend Ginny, who lives with MS in Cary. She could not be here today, but she's visited with some of you previously. Over the past 36 years, she has endured many difficult MS symptoms. At times, Jenny's worst symptom is unrelenting pain. Disease-modifying drugs have slowed the progression of her MS, but traditional medications have failed her with her pain and spasticity. Pain is exhausting. Cannabis can be a tool in the doctor's toolbox to help individuals like Ginny. She needs you to act this session so she can live her best life in North Carolina with her family. Thank you.
Thank you. We have one more, and then Senator Rabin, I know you wanted to respond. I'll give you the opportunity for the last word, if that's okay.
Later.
Yes. The last one to speak will be Corrine Casper. If you would come to the mic and state your name. We'd like to have more time. We're not going to vote on this bill. Unfortunately, we're only allocated the 50 minutes, and it's going to require more time, so I'm sure we'll be discussing this again. Ms. Casper, you're recognized to speak, and you have 2 minutes.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Corinne Gasper, and I'm here today to tell you my story. My daughter Jennifer was an amazing woman. She was a wonderful student as she was growing up. All the teachers in her classrooms used to say it was a pleasure having her in the classroom. She grew up in high school to become an amazing athlete. She won a scholarship to college. She graduated with honors in college. She was Student of the Year. And my last picture of my daughter is as she was receiving that award. While she was in college, she decided to get a degree in intelligence and analysis research. She decided that she would like to fight illicit drugs when she got older. She did an internship with HIDA, and she received a award from HIDA for outstanding contributions to the program. After she graduated, she was waiting for her dream job, but in the meantime, she took a job with a large corporation, a large international corporation. Jennifer knew Arabic and Spanish and could speak frequently. Anyways, Jennifer one night was called into work early. As she went in, she was impacted in an intersection by a man driving high on so-called medical marijuana. He hit my daughter's car so hard, her car was strewn across the road and through the front of a building, and the facade of that building fell on top of her car, killing her at the scene. This man removed himself from his vehicle and had no idea what he just did. His car reeked of marijuana. He had like I said, he had a medical marijuana card, and he admitted smoking it just before the crash. So this is just an example of the unintended consequences that you will suffer from marijuana in your state. The marijuana you find in the pot shops has no proven medical benefits. It's anecdotal evidence, and it's been presented to you as it is medical. We need to consider this and realize the damage it's doing to our society. My daughter's death is but one of them. She lost her life because of medical marijuana driver, and countless others will do the same. And I thank you for your time today. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Senator Rabin. We'll give you a couple minutes to wrap up, and then the meeting will be adjourned. Thank you. You're recognized.
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify one thing from the first gentleman that spoke that said every state had entertained or gone to recreational use, and that is incorrect. Hawaii passed medical marijuana in 2000. It has not passed recreational marijuana. It has come before the body at least 5 times and has failed every time. Florida, Mississippi, Utah, and Oklahoma have medical marijuana and do not have recreational marijuana. I just want to set the record straight. That was not.
Thank you for your presentation. I appreciate everyone's cooperation. I know time was short, and I apologize, but that's the allocated time. This bill was for discussion only, so the meeting is adjourned.